Actually, this year, what I found kind of interesting, which is really a direct reflection of our nation, our community at large, is it was kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? There definitely were good things, and we ended our session with some keynote speakers that really address the positive aspects of social media. But we also, in the cone of silence and circle of trust that represents the Mayo Clinic social media network, we also were able to really talk about issues that, we face. And we had some folks get up and really, in a no tweet zone, as they referred to it, talked about some of the challenges that they have with, rogue social media elements. And you know what? Anybody can be an influencer in 5 minutes in social media if you got the right tweet at the right time to the right people or the right or the wrong audience. And how do you manage that? How do you manage your individual's right to free speech and the desire to work on a personal brand, which we all have nowadays? How do you balance that with the professionalism necessary for your organization, for the rules of the road, and of course HIPAA? So that was a really good, very productive conversations, and again, it was also you feel other people's pain. You're like, okay, good, I'm not the only one experiencing this issue.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, and let's kind of get dive into some practical things. I mean, I think you did maybe I wouldn't say a session or two, but you got maybe 10 or 15 minutes to maybe talk about the Twitter. And what did you tell the audience in at least in that session?
So I was invited to. They did some very, very short 15-minute practicums on individual platforms. So I got to talk about advanced Twitter because, again, we assumed that we had moved beyond the Twitter 101. So most of my focus, interestingly enough, while I won't admit to being a real numbers geek and I do not love Google Analytics, it's great to have Google Analytics, but it's not where I spend my time. I really did talk about in Twitter, it is still good to curate your followers and following. It's worth it to take the time to run through, say, there's a platform called twitteraudit.com. Just run your profile through, find out how many, fake followers you have. The days of I'm important because I have 100,000 followers, that really doesn't matter anymore. If you've got 5,000 people who actually follow you and you engage with, you've got a great Twitter presence. Unless your goal is to be, the next Kardashian, it influences.
What's wrong with that? Is there, I want to be Dr. Kardashian. Is that a bad thing, Janet?
Oh, well, that's a different kind of brand. And you know what? Nothing wrong with that. If that is your focus in healthcare and you want to talk about death with dignity, go to town. It's absolutely, whatever you want to do, just do it with purpose and knowledge and a plan. Winging it isn't necessarily the best way to go, because guess what's going to happen? You're going to suddenly say something off the cuff, off the top of your head, and suddenly you're in the middle of a big old firestorm, and you got to learn how to graciously pick up the pieces.
So yeah, let's kind of shift here. Kind of the keynote speaks. I saw on the Twitter, Susanna Fox, I think was the keynote speaker, and I saw a lot of her people tweeting about her. What were your impressions of her? I think she was saying social media about hope, I think was the title of her talk.
Yeah, and basically what she addressed is the fact that, social media is being used for powers of good, that people have been able to do amazing things. She used actually the Cajun Navy as an example of how citizens banded together to solve a problem after Katrina, and how, unfortunately, we've had ongoing issues with flooding and hurricanes, and that they're actually ready to step in. Now, I'm sure some of the professional disaster relief people are saying, yeah, Cajun Navy, yeah, they're great. But in social media, we have seen right now, for instance, the horrible fires going on in Paradise, California. And there have been some really wonderful social media run programs to raise money for the pets that have been left behind and are in disaster situations, for the people. We have the ability through social media to empower people to immediate action. And that is amazing. That is really amazing. But that action can take all kinds of shapes and forms, and can also be something where it's fun to take down a big guy. And if you perceive everybody as bigger than you, then, you know, that can become something of a firebrand hobby. How do I make myself bigger by making other people smaller? So we talked also about civility and, you know, trying to refocus on the positive. And of course, in healthcare, the challenge is that you can't respond in many cases, that your response is no response, which in the social media world is misunderstood, that you really can't get into a debate with somebody about their care or about their cousin's care or an incident that happened here or there. So yeah, it's still touchy for healthcare, but I felt at the end of Susanna's presentation, and here's the cool thing about it, you know, that she backed it up with stats. It isn't like how I felt, how I thought, you know, what my gut reaction is. She's like, hey, look at these numbers. These numbers show that, you know, things are not as bad as we perceive them to be.